Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it EPCOT. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Retro Disney World Podcast. I'm your host, Todd McCartney, and tonight this is episode 33.35, Looking Back at Tomorrow. We're going to take you through some of the EPCOT 35 events, as well as the event that we put on at the Living Seas Salon just a few days ago. Sitting in with me always is Mr. JT Kuzier. How you doing tonight, JT?
Doing good. Feeling good after our weekend. Just finally back in the swing of things, I feel like, on Thursday.
Yeah, it's taken me a couple days after the family trip. I was exhausted, so it's a lot all at once. Our local boy, Mr. Hal Bowers, how you doing? You didn't have much. You got home quick the other night, too.
Aloha. Yes, I'm very fast.
No traffic at 12:30 at night.
No, it's pleasantly empty.
There we go. And as always, from the city of brotherly love, Mr. Brian P. Miles. How you doing tonight, Brian?
Greetings and salutations from Pennsylvania, the Keystone State.
I tell you, Brian, if the travel department of Pennsylvania ever needs a voiceover, I can see you on the commercials now.
We can only hope.
That's right. So, well, as we said at the beginning of the show here, we're going to take you back, looking back at tomorrow. And we really got three things to talk about tonight. One is our event that we put on the Living Seas Salon on September 30th. And also we're going to talk a little bit about the D23 event that was held on October 1st in EPCOT Center. And we're also going to talk about the Progressive Dinner that was also held on October 1st. The four of us were lucky enough to be able to get tickets for that. And we had a wonderful time, and we've got a lot of really, really neat information that we found out from that specific event. However, we're going to start off with our event, and with that said, I'm going to let Hope Alexander Willis start the show.
Try to imagine, just for a moment, that somewhere in the endless reaches of a state, on the outer edge of a county of 500,000 people, deep within a cluster of slowly growing trees, a tract of land of just the right size lies just the right distance from its mother star. Try to imagine. Now a sphere's creation begins as countless engineers raise panels into a sky of dreams. And then that sphere waits and waits and waits. Until finally crowds travel from afar and descend upon that land. And they came and came and came. The deluge. A deluge of such magnitude that the world's greatest minds, flowing together for years, would only just begin to approach its lasting impressions. For when it was finally silenced, imaginations were inspired and dreams had been born. Try to imagine, just for a moment, a place of inspiration and imagination, a place of adventure, awareness, and discovery, a place that foresees a future of progress, hope, and human achievement. Try to imagine. Retro WDW welcomes you now to take the first steps back to that future. We welcome you to the living seas. We welcome you to looking back at tomorrow.
All right, guys. Pretty interesting opening. Let's tell our listeners who that is. For our listeners that weren't there that night, you might recognize the voice. As I mentioned, that's Hope Alexander Willis. And you may recognize her voice from things such as the new WKRP in Cincinnati. She was on that television show. She was also in the Princess Diaries 1 and 2. And she did a lot of other cameo roles, if you could say, or small roles in a lot of different television shows. But more importantly, she was the voice that welcomed you into Seabase Alpha in the Seas film back in 1986 when that opened. We got in touch with her, and she very graciously agreed to record the opening that we had penned, and we tried to really simulate a little bit of what it was like going into the Seas Pavilion. And I think if you go to our website, and also in the show notes here, we'll have a link to the opening film. So for those of you that were at the event, you not only heard her voice, but you saw a film that accompanied it, and I think it came out really, really well. Sad part is that, I mean, she couldn't be with us, but the amazing part, I guess, and also sad, is that she never got to see the film that she narrated in EPCOT. To this day, she has never visited EPCOT Center, and she was so pinnacle in actually, in that film.
Actually, Todd, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I've heard interviews with other personalities from other attractions, and you'd be shocked how many of them never made it down to actually see themselves or their role in the attractions while they were running at the parks.
It's really interesting, and she gave us a little hint of how they put it all together too. She flew out to Skywalker Ranch, is where this was all recorded. Was it Industrial Light and Magic back then in '86? Had that been formed? I don't recall. We'll have to look that up.
So Skywalker Sound was a separate entity and has been for a long time.
Oh.
So the sound part of it was separate from the special effects part of it. All owned by George Lucas, but all separate divisions.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. So it was great to have Hope on there, and really, really appreciate her being able to lend her voice. I think it gave a great open to it. I know a lot of people were kind of laughing and smiling and really remembering what it was like, and how you did a great job on the trace of the Living Seas Pavilion at the very end.
Thank you.
Yes. It was very like Escape from New York, that green outline of Manhattan. That's what it reminded me of. It was really cool. I want to add, though, too, I kind of positioned myself when it started. I wanted to see this because this is what was it for me, like going in there. I just was standing kind of like by the entryway, saying hi to people as people walked in. And I thought it was so cool watching people like just have that, deer in the headlights, like I need to see this place look as they came in. It was pretty cool watching everybody sort of funnel in. And then I also saw the green room where everybody was forced to wait down there in that crowded area, which we'll upload these pictures and that. It was so packed, so definitely kudos to them for crowding into that little room. And there was just this little Disney lady with the little light up wand holding them back. It was pretty funny. I was like, oh my gosh, we got to start this. We're getting restless.
Yeah, so we did start on time, and you're exactly right, JT. They everybody poured in. If you haven't been to the Seas Salon, when you walk in, you really can't see the room. You have to go around this large lit display that says the Living Seas. And as they came around, their eyes feasted on what I know Brian and I had been working on and looking forward to, and it was the cake, right, Brian?
There was a lot of pastry anticipation.
I think the pastry chefs did a great job in reproducing color with spot. I couldn't believe the amount of decorations on the side of the cake, the little Mickeys and the swag, really. Well,
they clearly had fun with it. We had some back and forth with them about adjustments they were going to make to it. And Todd and I were asked for permission to change the castle that was on the original cake to the spaceship Earth that they put on the final cake for us. But what the cool thing was being up there for an hour beforehand setting up, the anticipation on the staff, on the Disney staff, excited to see the cake because they hadn't seen it yet. But we really want to see what this cake looked like. And when they wheeled it out and it was on the bottom shelf of this cart, I said to them, I don't know how they're going to get it off the bottom of the cart up onto the table. But I also knew I didn't want to watch, so I went into the other room while they moved the cake up onto the table.
Oh man, yeah, it was really, really neat cake. Well,
so we'll recap the cake. The cake was as we expected. Fantastic. It was the paparazzi star of the night. I mean, the people were flashing pictures with it and taking pictures of it, and tweeting and Facebooking and Instagramming.
We had to give a warning too. Hey, it's going back to be cut. Take your last photos now, and more people pour it over.
There was a swarm of people over there, and it took them an extra 10 minutes to be able to take the cake away. But when they finally sliced it and brought it out, it was delicious.
It was a very good cake.
Really, we got a lot of compliments on it, and even one person came up to me and say, I only had one pretzel, but I had 4 pieces of cake. That's what they said. So hats off to the pastry department. Awesome job.
And they should know that that a couple of people asked us who did the cake. Future World has its own pastry chef for the pavilions, and that's the person who did that cake.
Yep. It was awesome. So we also had, as we got into the beginning, Hal and Brian, we talked about, I think it was you, Hal, talked about the drinks and the beverages and the food. And it turns out, Hal, that your 3 custom created beverages were the top sellers all night of any beverage. So
I never doubted it.
I think we struck a chord with our listeners and their choice.
Well, who doesn't like a good cocktail?
That's right.
So, and yeah, I think so. We sold. I think the top seller was the Hydrolator number 2.
Correct.
Out of all of them. So, and that makes me feel good. I'm glad I hope everyone enjoyed them. One of the things that we will do, Todd, I'm going to give you the recipes to tweet out and to include with the show notes here, so that way people can make them at home.
Yep.
They are not very complicated. If Disney can get the ingredients, I know our listeners certainly can, because Disney isn't super aggressive about what kinds of things they get to use by design.
Right.
So.
We should say they were great to work with putting those custom drinks together, and we really appreciate the fans' enthusiasm for them. I mean, there was over 100 of them sold. So
yeah, really, really great. So I'm glad everybody got to enjoy those. And the pretzels, oh boy, 20 minutes, the pretzels were gone. We actually had to approve.
They called
more.
For reinforcements.
Exactly.
Mr. Miles, we need more pretzels.
I said, order them, bring them.
I had
them the torpedoes, full speed ahead.
They pulled me over to the side and said, "We you have to sign this paper so we can bring out more pretzels." I'm like, "Okay, all right, I'll just sign the paper. Bring them out. We don't care. We want people happy." So yeah, everybody enjoyed the pretzels and everything. And talking about
wait a minute, but it wasn't just the pretzels. There were 3 mustards, right? There was a trio of mustards.
A trio of mustards, yes.
Which I completely missed, but
I missed them too. Yeah. I didn't hear about it till afterwards.
We're gonna have our own private event with just the 4 of us, I think.
And some mustard.
Brian, you mentioned the Disney staff, anticipating the cake. I spoke to a lot of them, and they had said that in the what's the name of the group we were working with?
Disney Events Group?
Yeah, okay. In the Disney Events Group, they had really been anticipating this event because they were looking forward to seeing it. They were looking forward to the history of Epcot, and it's something they were all excited about. In fact, I think everybody was so excited to be there, we couldn't get the crowd to calm down a little bit and quiet down as we were trying to talk.
Well, so let's set the scene for everybody.
Sure.
To recap, so the event, we had originally announced that Disney legend Tom Nabbe would be there to share with us his stories of working with the folks who built Epcot. And he, of course, we mentioned that he provided all of everything that went into Epcot, every showpiece, every table, chair, carpet, anything that came into EPCOT Center while they were building it came through his warehouse, over $350 million of unique items. And Tom always has fascinating stories about that aspect of the construction and the job. So we knew our fans were in for a treat to meet Tom. And then we added Corinne Cook-Gooley, who was portrayed one of both an animatronic and a live actress in the Horizons attraction. And it's the first time Corinne's ever done a Disney event anywhere, looking back at her role in Epcot or in any attraction. A last-minute addition that no one knew about until they came into the room that night was another Disney legend, and that was Imagineer Bob Gurr, who Hal did a fantastic introduction of. that night when Bob addressed the crowd and told us the story of how he helped secure General Motors as the first sponsor of an EPCOT pavilion. And so people walked into the room, and I don't think they were expecting for Tom Nabbe to just be there kind of hanging out and greeting them as they came in. And then the realization is all of a sudden there was this kerfuffle down in the one corner of the room as people realized Bob Gurr is here.
Right.
And he's just standing here taking pictures and talking to people. And so when we started the event, both of those guys were to our left, on the left-hand side of the room from where our podium was. And, you couldn't get, the crowd wasn't going to quiet down because there was a crowd around Tom Nabbe and a crowd around Bob Gurr. And the only time they quiet down is they all quiet down to watch the introductory video. Mm-hmm. And the crowd around Bob Gurr immediately got, as soon as Hope Alexander Willis's narration shifted from the opening lines that we wrote, which were identical to the Living Seas opening lines, to the ones customized for our intro, they started to laugh. And then as they realized the different pieces coming from her, the things she was saying, what they were looking at on the screen, that was the group around Bob Gurr was the ones that, they really picked up on it right away.
Yeah.
Bob Gurr was laughing too. They all got it.
There was the entire group let out this, when they saw Horizons, the montage of
being destroyed.
Being destroyed. There was boo.
Somebody yelled too soon, and I'm like, it's 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if you want to see that opening film, we've got it in the show notes and on our website now. But yeah, people were definitely excited. So after that, as we're talking about, people came in and they saw Bob and they saw Tom, and we the first thing that we started off with before we explained everything that's going on, we got interrupted. We did.
And JT, who interrupted us?
Goofy.
Not just any
Goofy.
Viking Goofy showed up, which I was surprised at the timing. Were any of you surprised, or was he right on cue when you played
I
it?
told them that the approximate time we'd like, and I said if he wants to just bust out and be goofy and interrupt us, you're more than welcome. And I think, Brian, you were about to say, I think we'll tell everybody who it is.
Well, I did. I had announced who it was, but we weren't more than a minute or two after that.
Yeah.
And Goofy came bursting in as we were doing part of our introductions.
Yep.
Which was part of the schedule. Because we needed to accommodate almost 200 people, we had 2 sessions with him of 30 minutes each. So, and he had a break in between. So he needed to get started. And honestly, how great was the Viking Goofy meet and greet?
It was fantastic, and not only did we have it in a separate room, they brought a background in. We had our private photographer there, so it was fantastic. For those of you listening, we'll have the photos available soon for you.
We will, yeah. But for the background on the character, at one point, the World Showcase pavilions all had a traditional Disney character, Chip and Dale, Mickey, Minnie, Pluto, etc., themed to that particular country's pavilion. So there was a Scottish Goofy that wore a kilt and had a nice puffy hat, and there was Canadian Mountie Mickey. There was a Japanese kimono Minnie, and so on and so forth. So Norway had Viking Goofy. And when we were looking for rare characters to incorporate into our event, we had a friend in entertainment suggest that this one might be available for us, and it turned out that it was. And I mean, for the character hunters who were there that night, and we had some of them, the folks who try and tick off every variation of characters available, they were thrilled with the choice because that character had not done meet and greets in many, many years.
Right.
So it was a real treat for our fans to be able to get there, and the people who attended, and I think we were thrilled to be able to make that happen.
And I'll say the handler, the guy that kind of watched him. There was a couple handlers, but one of them, he was actually a pretty nice guy. He did tell me, I thought this was interesting, that he'd been with the company 15 years, and he said he'd never seen that character before.
Yes.
So he was pretty pumped. He goes, I'm pumped to see this thing myself.
And the woman, she'd been there for 19 years and hadn't seen it. So it was pretty.
So
amazing.
we done good.
So that
that was a good.
And their friend of Goofy was very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Very, very entertaining. Very great pictures. Very animated with the crowd.
Oh yeah, constantly changing pose and interacting. Really, and look, now that outfit has been combed and preened. It's all ready for another round. So maybe he'll appear in Norway soon. He could thank us. All right, so then we got into interviewing Corinne, and how was it you that spoke with her?
Yes, I
believe.
did.
Yeah, so I think we learned a little bit how they measured every knuckle, every body part. They did a face mask, all sorts of stuff, and we have a video of all this, and we're going to put it together so everybody can see all and hear all the questions and things that asked. But what are some other highlights about the things she told us about her time? So what we thought was interesting is that she initially came in, and when she did our audition, she read against Tom Fitzgerald, who she just assumed was a PA or another actor. She didn't realize that he was the writer of the show. And of course, now he's the president of Walt Disney Imagineering, so times have changed. But she just thought he was just another regular guy there. She didn't know he was anybody special. And when she talked I also liked the part where she talked about having a life mask done. So they did that thing that they often do with people doing special effects, where they basically covered her face with plaster and then left some holes that they could stick straws in. So she could get air during the 3 hours that this like wet stuff set up. And she told us they actually messed up the first time they did it, and they had too much water in the mix, so they actually had to do it again for another 3 hours. And she let us know that Tom Fitzgerald actually refused to have this done, so someone had to sculpt him by hand rather than using the life mask as the technique to get the face copy done. So cannot imagine. So it seems so glamorous, when you're like, oh, it'd be great to be an audio animatronic character, but there was hours of prep behind that. Yeah. So again, we'll have the video up once that's fully edited and ready, and we'll get that out so you can see the full interview. So at that point in the event, I think we did the cake cutting. We announced to everybody. We all yelled "Happy Birthday, EPCOT Center," and everybody was thrilled to yell that. We sent the cake off for cutting, and Goofy wrapped up his first set. Everybody was stuffed with pretzels and waiting for the cake to come out. But then we brought Tom Nabbe out as well.
We did, and Tom and I had a chat for the crowd where he shared some stories about losing a spool of cable that they eventually found, and all of the unique equipment that they brought in. And one of them was for the Grosvenor Hotel, an unidentified thing that they thought was for Epcot. It was misdirected to his department. But he talked about just all of the weird things, working with Van Romans on all of the unique cultural items that were placed around World Showcase in each of the countries. A lot of stuff there. We talked to Tom for probably about 15 minutes, and then let him go back to his adoring throngs. And when I say there were adoring throngs, not only is, and this is true of all of our guests, and I should probably say it now, they were so gracious with our attendees, with their time. They signed everything they were asked to sign. They took pictures with everyone who wanted a picture. I don't think anybody left that room that night saying, "Oh, I never got a chance to meet." One of those. They got time with all three of them.
We had tables set up, and they didn't even want to go to the tables. They
couldn't.
They
couldn't.
They just mingled.
Nabbe was at a high top by the bar most of the night, and people just came up and spent time with him. Bob Gurr, as I said, held court down in his little area off to the side, and then Corinne actually moved around from group to group and spent time with as many guests as she could, almost like the mother of the bride does at a wedding. I mean, she was just moving from little group to group and engaging them in conversation. And because sometimes fans look, we're weirdos. We Epcot lovers, and some of us are a little socially awkward and not entirely comfortable. And she put them totally at ease and went up and approached them. And I really felt like we did something that Disney couldn't do at one of their events because there's so many people at their events.
Right.
But by having the kind of room that we had and the kind of event that we had, we talk about these presentations. At no time was there really, we had these little talks, but it really was more of a party atmosphere. where occasionally somebody had the microphone like at a rehearsal dinner or something. But for the most part, everybody was just kind of hanging out. They had a drink in their hand. They were eating something. They were laughing and enjoying the artifact table that we had there. We all brought stuff from our own personal collections and got a lot of compliments on a lot of the rare items that we had out on display. Nobody stole anything. Thank you, fans. And it just really was a party atmosphere reigned supreme.
Yeah. And I gotta give a shout out to all the young kids that came too. We had we had adorable little girl. She could have been any older than 5 or 6. She was up with Goofy, and we had I believe the girl's name was Ella. She was probably about 12 or 13. A fantastic Epcot fan. Listens to our podcast. The Miles family was there with their kids and helping us check in and helping us with the event. And it was really great to see people of all ages. I mean, really, I think we spanned from about 6 years old up into the 90s. It was a great wide variety of people there that really wanted to hear about old Epcot.
And there were a lot of people who followed the instructions and they brought their own figment.
That's right. Yeah, we had a couple of figments, great shirts. How you're looking back at tomorrow's shirt. I forgot to tell you this. So we were there with family that day, as you know, and my son, my wife, and my son's 2 cousins walked into the turnstiles of Epcot wearing that, and they had the Disney photographer there for PhotoPass, and we're all lining up, and she looks over, she goes, "Those shirts are awesome. Where can I get one?" And she was so thrilled, so I had to tell her. So hats off to you, Hal, for designing the Looking Back at Tomorrow. It definitely even got some cast members looking.
We saw a lot of Hal Bauer shirts that night.
We saw a Nabbe grabber. There was a couple of Nabbe grabbers. We saw we're doing
water
it.
pageant.
Yeah, We're Doing It was there. Quite a number of them, which was great. So appreciate everybody.
And how about the guy with the Figment puppet? Come on.
He even
How great was that?
He even had the cast member, a reproduction cast member outfit and holding Figment, and he's watching and listening to Nabbe, and Figment's moving and slightly interacting. Yes. And it wasn't like it just.
It was alive.
Figment was there. So I believe at this point in the evening, the cake started to roll out, and we introduced Bob Gurr, and at that point I was signing papers for pretzels and other things, so I missed a good portion of it. But Brian, was it you and Hal did the talk with Bob, I believe.
I let Howard take the lead on that because, as we mentioned, Bob Gurr was a last-minute God-sent addition to our event, and I called Hal at 8:30 the morning of the event and said, "Guess what? You've got 6 hours to drive to Orlando and bone up on Bob Gurr and Epcot."
Yeah, so I did, and it's actually really funny because Bob Gurr got fired just as Epcot was getting started. So he didn't have. It's funny, he didn't have a lot of like actual hands-on Epcot stories because he left and he started his own company, and he shared this with us, which was really great. He went off and he did a bunch of things in Las Vegas for Steve Wynn, sunk pirate ships, and designed Kong for Kongfortation in both Orlando and in Hollywood, which was great. The one thing he did tell us that he absolutely did for Epcot was put the vice president, who I believe was in charge of the design division, he met him at the opening of Art Center College and told him all about Epcot, and Disney was pitching the Ford Motor Company previous to that because of their tie-in with Magic Skyway, and Bob Gurr got this guy super excited about Epcot, and he was actually coincidentally planning to build a Motorama, which if you recall the 1964 World's Fair, the GM had an exhibit there, which was kind of shadowed by Disney's for the Ford Pavilion, but this person had an idea completely separately from Disney's to actually put some sort of giant exhibit in Orlando and have a car museum. And so serendipity sort of played in, and it just made sense for them to do it with Disney. So Bob went back to Disney and talked to Marty Sklar and said, "Hey, you need to send that presentation toolkit out to GM, to this guy." And he said, Marty basically tried to rip him a new one because they really wanted Ford. But it went out, and within a couple of days, they had started having talks at the business level, and there were some neat stories about them meeting at the Top of the World Hotel at Walt Disney World. And yeah, so they were the first. I had known that they were the first sponsor to sign on, but I did not know what the story was behind that, and Bob did a great job filling that in. He also told us about the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea subs, working on that in the Tampa shipyards, and he's just a great guy. I mean, you hand him a microphone and just kind of get him started, and he could just spin a tale for hours, and you could just listen to him talk. He's fantastic.
He is great, and he told my wife, he said I forget the drink he liked. He said whatever alcoholic beverages because I need to keep hydrated. Was he's definitely got a ball. He's a ball of energy, and Bob, if you're listening, thank you very much for coming to the show.
We should also say when we sat with him for dinner the next night at the D23 Progressive Dinner Evening event.
Yes.
And when the D23 staff came over to talk to him, he took time out to tell them what a terrific event we threw and how interesting and well-researched our questions and our back and forth with him was at the event, which I thought was an exceptional compliment from him.
Yes, that was very, very nice of him.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that event a little later, but yeah, that was really, really nice of him to do that. So at this point, I think after Bob completed, we went into what we, I guess, affectionately could call just the open mingle, where everybody was having cake, and Goofy was doing his second set. So
catching their breath from all this excitement.
And the four of us quickly ran in and jumped to the front of the line for a quick photo of Goofy.
Yes.
Everybody was, who are these guys? The handler didn't want to let us in. I'm like, hey, sorry, we're busting in. This is our event. You're gonna get us. You're gonna let us get in there. So that was neat. So we got a great picture of the four of us with Goofy, and all of our matching little shirts and stuff. So that looked great. But the photo we tweeted the photo out already. I think it really came out awesome. And then about quarter of, we needed to get everybody back to the screens. Now, this was for the gift reveal, and Brian and I we're pumping. I think we pumped this on one of the episodes we did. We've been talking about it. We tweeted it out that, we were going to try to provide the coolest retro gift that we could possibly even think of.
Mission accomplished.
And before, if you haven't watched Twitter and you haven't watched Facebook and our website, we're going to tell you in a second what it was. We went through a bunch of iterations and ideas, and some of them were, we talked about coasters, and we talked about doing some 12-sided Rubik's Cubes with the different pavilion logos and all these different things that we'd come up with. And as many of you may know, we were already handing out an autographed picture of Tom Nabbe, one of his window pins. We gave everybody a link to a new film. We had the pictures of Corinne, and we also had a gift bag. But we needed something else to go into that gift bag. We were really thinking about something that is truly iconic to the way EPCOT was back when it opened and in its highlight years. And we kept coming back to the fountain in the very front of Spaceship Earth with the acrylic spires, or acrylic prisms, if you will. And we were really unsure if we could pull it off. And I said to Brian one day in a message, I just messaged him, I said, hey, look, let's just ask Disney. Let's not do this behind the back. Let's just ask if we can do it. And a couple days later, they came back and they said, yeah, that's totally fine as long as you don't put the EPCOT logo on it. And my jaw dropped, because at this point, it was August 9th, I believe, is when they gave us the okay, and we have 6 weeks to go to try to pull this off. So Brian and I kind of kept this under wraps for a little bit secret, because we did not know if it was going to actually be able to materialize correctly to get it there on time. And without going into too much detail, I'll tell in a little bit here, but it was close, to say the least.
You can read the article on our website, if you want to know the details of how it was done. But let's skip all that and get to the reveal.
Exactly. So we made a film that teased everybody a little bit and had this nice bit of dramatic music playing, and this is all on the website and on the article as well. Dramatic music playing and really focusing on Spaceship Earth. So everybody was kind of going down this path that Spaceship Earth was going to be the gift. And all of a sudden in the film, as you'll see, the music changes, and the Spaceship Earth that we know from the 80s fades into the Spaceship Earth that we know now, with the monoliths out front and the fountain missing. And then it goes into this whole thing of, what was lost, and we show pictures of the fountain, and then it goes into that it will rise again. And we never showed the actual fountain model throughout the whole film. It was all sneak peeks and pictures of the renderings and of the design and the molds and all the parts being assembled in China. And then at the very end, we showed a black screen showing that not only was there the fountain was the gift, but the fountain also changed color. And I remember seeing people looking at each other when they realized it was the fountain, and they looked at each other and their jaw dropped. And I can't even remember what happened after. I just cannot wait to get the film, get the video back from Art. He told me that he's got Bob Gurr's reaction and said he was just smiling the whole time with a big smile. And then we had one underneath the podium. We pulled it out, showed it to them. And Brian, you did I think the only thing you could possibly do with that, right?
Well, Todd was holding it up, and the way the lighting is in that salon, it comes down from overhead. So you either have this like Close Encounters of the Third Kind beam on your head, or you're in like darkness, like Batman.
It's horrible.
Well, it's just it's perfect for that room, but for our purposes at that point, it was difficult for photographs, things like that. But so I'm under this beam of light, and I just grabbed it out of your hand and held it up and did the Lion King, which was a great comedic effect.
That's right. Everybody laughed, and we told a little bit about the design, a little about how difficult it was to get it there. It did arrive, thanks to Ashley Suit and also our very own JT for, Ashley housed them there for a day or so as they arrived just the day before.
We know what it's like to be Oprah Winfrey and give everybody a car.
That's right. That's right. And JT wasn't in Florida for more than an hour before he was already en route to pick them up on the day of the event. So it was a rush schedule. We certainly won't try to do that again. We'll have them done ahead of time. So, but now I know there's $1 million question out there, right, guys? We gave away fountains to everybody who attended, including we gave some to the Disney staff. They absolutely loved it. The D23 staff heard about it and they were thrilled. But we've not ceased receiving emails. Where can I get one? How can I get a fountain? So everybody listen up. We do have an opportunity. There's a limited number left. We have a limited number of fountains left that were left over from the event, and we are opening up something on our website with Donor Box. And essentially, this is a way that you can donate to Retro WDW so that we can continue to produce this podcast, purchase films, do the restoration. Through this event, we also made some connections that can possibly bring us some incredible films that no one has seen in 20 some plus years.
We should probably also say, as we're making this pitch, and it is for donations, these are gifts in return for donations. We're not selling this stuff.
Correct.
But our tickets, after we add Bob Gurr and after we add the fountains and after we added everything else that we weren't originally planning on doing, our tickets were probably about $10 a ticket, too cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're doing is helping to defray the cost of the event and make it possible not only for us to continue, but for us to do future cool events, right, which we'll talk about before the end of the night.
Exactly. So we do have, if you go right to retrowdw.com, on the right-hand side, you'll see Donor Box. If you click that link, it will take you to Donor Box, and it will show the various donation amounts that you can make. There's a wide range, and there's also certain gifts that you will receive for making that donation to us. And the EPCOT Center fountain is appropriate at the $82 level for the year that EPCOT opened. So there's a variety. If that's not something that is in your budget, there's also other ways that you can support us as well. So we really do appreciate everybody being able to.
And you get a whole bag of other goodies with that $82 one.
Yep. You get all sorts of we'll add in the autograph of Tom Nabbe and some pins and Corrine and all that stuff. So there's all different levels of things that you can have there. So so head over to retrowdw.com and click on the donor box link up in the right hand side, and we'll also tweet out an article explaining this as well and get that posted.
I'd highly recommend sharing this link with your family members because these are great gifts.
And Christmas is less than 80 days away.
That's right.
And
Hanukkah. Tell your
Hanukkah.
family, hey, I want a fountain for the second night of Hanukkah.
Yep.
Boom, there you go. It's right
And
there.
we should probably mention that while it does change color, it does not pump water. So don't try to put water in the fountain. Although that was the first question that China asked me. They said, "Oh, it's a model fountain, so you want it to pump water?" I was like, "No."
Well, we could have gotten it to pump water, but it wouldn't have been here in time for the event if we had done that.
That's correct.
So.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yep.
Maybe that'll be version 2.0.
Yeah, I'll have to be a little
the
little
life
larger.
size mold we have. Though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is really cool at night. The prisms light up perfectly. It really, really came out.
Unless, like me, you forgot to turn it off the first night and you run your batteries down by letting it run all night.
Did you?
Brian,
you ruined the button
Brian was
batteries.
lulled to sleep by the ever-changing color of the fountain. One more note on the fountain. I have to give a huge shout out to Jason at Deepwater Studios. As you may know, he is our webmaster. He's also, he does work for me on the side for some artwork and stuff, but he was behind all of the 3D modeling, the entire design of the fountain. And I think he did a fantastic job replicating it for us. So, Jason, really, really appreciate it. Without you, we would not have been able to do this at all. So, thank you very much for putting that all together for us.
I think what people need to appreciate here is there's no blueprint for this, and there's nothing like somebody didn't go up with a tape measure and measure the height of the thing. Like, you guys took this from like old films and photos and sort of like, okay, this man looks about 6 foot tall, and you know, I think let's double him, and that's so crazy.
Yeah,
to
that's
me.
exactly what Jason did. He took he found a shot of the fountain that was dead straight on, and then through other photos and triangulation and whatnot, he was able to try and figure that out. And a funny quick story that I've told to a couple people is when we first designed the fountain, I printed it out. It was lame. It was so tiny. The little prisms were about 1.5 inches tall, and that's because of how big that fountain was.
He sends me this picture of it with a pencil next to it, and I said, "Oh, that's just pitiful."
And
like,
it didn't.
It's a micro
Yeah,
machine.
yeah.
It was.
We tweeted out a picture of it, and it didn't work. I mean, it looked cool, but you don't realize how big that fountain was. So we took some artistic license and collapsed everything together, and then we simulated the tiles and picked out the PMS colors and all that. So
I think Todd and I spent 2 hours going back and forth on just the right blue for the tile. I'm looking at picture after picture, and he's sending me different Pantones, and I think it's this one, maybe it's that one.
And all of this was made without actually even seeing the sample. Normally, when you make a product like this, you get a sample, you look at it. We approved everything via photos, and collectively held our breath as the airplane flew a couple nights before the event to deliver these.
Yeah, so technically, I could have seen it before you if I would have opened those boxes
true.
while driving
That's
and
true.
texting you and saying.
Well, the
I'm on
funny
way
thing
all at the
was
same
we
time.
started filling the bags in the staging room without having opened one, and it was, Todd got there, we had probably had 50 bags filled at that point, and I finally said, "Are we going to open one of these?" and so there was a point we our friend Matt at Horizons One on Twitter helped us. I drafted him that day to come and help us out at the prep, so he was in there helping Amy and Todd and JT and Hal stuffing bags, and as we're running around trying to get the room set up and the artifact table and everything. And so he's like, "Do you want me to leave the room?" And I'm like, "No, this is the benefit of stuffing all these bags, is you get to see us open this thing." And so we got his reaction when he opened it, which was awesome.
It was an expletive, I believe.
Yeah, there was some cuss words.
I think there were some cuss words. Yeah, that's. Well, I actually also slipped on Bob Gurr earlier in the day in front of him. I said something about he had met Corinne earlier in the day in EPCOT while we were going around, and I said something about, I have so-and-so coming. Okay, I got to go meet them. They're on Bob Gurr duty tonight. And he looks at me and goes, "Bob Gurr's coming tonight?" Oh, well, cat's out of the bag.
That's right. So, but, and also I want to give a big thank you also to all of the Disney staff there for, they were fantastic through the evening. They helped us with putting some stuff together. They helped us hand out the gifts. all of the staff, including the people with the characters, the cashiers, the bartenders, Kelly. I know Gloria was unavailable to be there. She was our main coordinator. Jill was fantastic. So really big thank you to everybody there. I couldn't have asked for a better team to help us pull this off.
And I, I mean, I know I speak for all of us, and you all might want to say something, but our fans took a leap. We'd never done an event before, and we sold a $70 ticket, promising Tom Nabbe and some cake, and that we promised them the rest of it would be cool. Just trust us. And we worked very hard to fulfill everybody's probably very low expectations. But I,
Sure,
going to these
but-
events for 5 years, I knew the kind of event I wanted to put on. And I know you guys have been, I mean, Hal's been to all of them since 2014 with me, the Destination D's and the Faniversaries. And so it was just like everything, when we talk about the character and we talk about the cake, and everything was kind of like, we always had the people coming in mind and trying to create a superior experience for them.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is all 175 of them bought a ticket not having any idea what we were going to do. And the waiting list was, what, 40%, 50% as much as actually attended.
Sure, exactly.
And, I mean, we could have sold 300 tickets if we wanted to. Yeah. And everybody there was great. We didn't I don't remember one person coming up during the night saying the pretzel wasn't good enough or this stunk. Like, anytime you put this kind of event on, afterwards there's always a story about somebody complained about something.
Right.
We had none of that.
Yeah.
I mean, these fans were great, and I know I speak for all of us in saying how much I appreciate it, and we'll try and do something like this again, and I hope that everybody was as satisfied as we think they are.
Yep. And thank you to everybody coming. We really appreciate it, and we had a great evening. All right. Well, let's move on to, Brian, you mentioned it just there in the closing a little bit, the D23 events. So 3 of us attended the daytime D23 events, which were preceded this a anniversary celebration at the EPCOT Center fountain stage at precisely 10:01 a.m. Might have been a little late due to the inclement weather there in the morning. We had the Mariachi Cobre come out and play a tune there for us. They've been there all 35 years of EPCOT. They were all the original band members there. And then we had some keynote speakers as well.
So we had Melissa Veliquette, the vice president of EPCOT, or maybe she's the vice president in charge of EPCOT. So
Correct.
And then also, I always slaughter his name, George
Calagridis.
Thank you.
The president of Walt Disney World.
Right.
So they told stories. George started out in the park as what was his job? His first job there? It's some very low level job. I can't remember what it.
So we were treated to that, and then they did some musical numbers to end that, and then we were all escorted over to the Millennium Village Pavilion, where I will say it was nicely set up when we walked in there, and super cool because it was a humid day, so it was refreshingly cold in there. And there were a number of different events that D23 put on there. It lasted, I think it started around 11, right? And went to about 2:30.
Well, yeah, they gave us a reserved spot for the outdoor ceremony, and then we moved indoors. I think they started at 10:45 with the first presentation, which was Michael Crawford, who's Progress City USA on Twitter and the internet, and Imagineer Daniel Joseph, who took us through really looking back at tomorrow. Some of Epcot Center's forgotten attractions and some little tidbits from there. Anything jump out at you guys that you remember from that presentation?
Yeah. So the one thing that struck me is they pulled out this memo from the Universe of Energy when they were putting that together. So obviously this is a big tragedy. We lost this attraction a couple of weeks ago. And they pulled out a memo from Marty where they were having a discussion about whether or not the snails, which were used in the 1964 World's Fair version, should make it into the attraction. So there's this thing that says, based on the attached memo, we should probably eliminate the large snails from the universe of energy. Please let me know if you disagree with eliminating the snails. And of course, they made it in. And
right. and then
just,
they brought one of the snail animatronics out for the crowd, a snail named Reggie.
Yeah. So that was really cute. But yeah, Michael did a great job going over a lot of stuff. They touched on some of the things like Horizons had a digital projector in it, which was unheard of at the time. That was a brand new technology, and that was used at the end when you picked where you were going to go. It's like they had a video displayer attached to that digital projector, so that way they could repeat that over and over again.
Was it in that presentation too? We learned that there was originally going to be a fourth, that there was going to be a city choice in the end.
Yes,
I believe it was in that presentation.
right.
They showed a picture. I think it was Fitzgerald was pointing in the photo, and there was it was
urban.
going to be a Nova site. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that never made it into the final.
Yep. Yeah, that was cool. And they also, I think this was on the Inside Out DVD extra, but they played some bits of Cranium Command, and they had Pixar storyman and director Pete Docter talk a little bit about how he had actually worked on Cranium Command as an animator when he was an intern at Disney, and he said that he got to do kind of a big sequence when he first started, and then when he got about halfway through the picture, a bunch of the Disney animators, like the real animators who were on other projects, like came in and kind of like pushed him out of the way and started doing the rest of the animation. So then he got to work on a bunch of the cutout stuff. But it was neat because we got to see some real nice projections of the Cranium Command pre-show, which we had not seen in a long time.
I completely forgot about the cutouts. They're very Monty Python-esque.
Yes.
Completely forgot about those. It really refreshed me.
And I always count on any Michael Crawford presentation to include rare video or audio, and he didn't disappoint by including about a minute of snazzy audio promotional footage of the World of Motion with a song that we hadn't heard before, which was really quite fun.
And I believe, Hal, you said that was from one of the GM films that was made.
Yes.
Right?
So that was from a video that was put together for General Motors, that was actually played for General Motors employees, so they would get an understanding of what the pavilion was about and what they were investing all their money in, which is actually a really great little piece.
Yeah, that I think in the annals of corporate sponsors, probably none better than General Motors married their various sponsorships of Disney stuff with their product and with benefits for their employees. I mean, I think we learned that as we spent some time up in the GM lounge that night. JT and I had a good conversation with one of the GM attendants up in the VIP lounge of Test Track, and so we probably 3 or 4 times over that weekend we learned different things about benefits that General Motors both got from sponsoring and offered to their benefits as a result of their participation in the parks.
That's cool. I mean, that's really that's one of the great reasons that you would want to become a corporate sponsor, pass this stuff on.
It really is, and it speaks to their unbroken string of sponsorship. Are they probably the only one now, right? That kind of from the beginning.
Yeah, from the beginning of EPCOT.
They've never broken their sponsorship. So.
All right, so the next thing up, guys, was we had the presentation with Tony Baxter, and I believe there are 2 other people up there. Their names escape me at the moment, but we went through 30 different things that if you knew about Epcot, and us being the people that we are, we kind of knew most of them, but there were a couple neat little tidbits in there. One that I remember.
The first thing that I'll tell you is who those other people were, because that was one of the 35 things. So along with Tony Baxter, it was Imagineer Jason Grant, who is 43 Square Miles on Twitter, and also show writer Diana Brost. So there we go.
There we go.
And so they reviewed while we were eating lunch, which they brought out and served to us there in our nice little nifty takeaway EPCOT35 lunchbox totes. When what they are actually is little coolers that can hold like a 6-pack or 2 6-packs stacked on top of each other. Really nice takeaway, but they brought out a box lunch for us, and I want to take a moment to compliment D23 because I've been to these events now, like I said, for 5 years, and usually they're set up in a like stadium seating kind of an arrangement where it's just rows and rows of chairs. And this one, they broke precedent, and we were actually all seated at tables of 8 people. And you could pick your table, no assigned tables or anything. It wasn't a wedding. But we had bottomless drinks available to us, Coke, Diet Coke, water, and coffee. And then they fed us. And what a nice way to spend 4 or 5 hours, right? Like to just kind of sit at a table and listen to them talk about EPCOT. It was very relaxed. With everybody now with their devices and I think we had 6 chargers on our table at that one point when I looked up, and everybody had their phone plugged into a charger. But what a great way to take in the event.
It was really, and I was puzzling. I thought we were going to have a choice of food, and lo and behold, we had the sliced beef tenderloin and the chicken sandwich in. So you really had the choice.
They fed us well.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of food in there.
And that Spaceship Earth pop, I don't know, I really liked it.
The cake pop.
The cake pop was good. So we learned.
All right, but enough about the food, even though our food episode apparently was very popular according to everybody who came up to us over that weekend. But yeah, so Tony Baxter and Jason Grant and Diana Brost went through 35 different things that we may not have known about EPCOT.
Right.
My favorite fact of the day was about the Imagination bathrooms.
Yeah, there we go. That they're still running that original background loop. But how did Tony start it? It was great.
Tony started by noting for us that until the attraction opened, which was 6 months after the park opened, that bathroom was used as the conference/meeting room every day for the daily construction meetings until the pavilion opened. That they didn't have anywhere else in the pavilion to do it because the Image Works was opened at that point and guests were going into it. So they would meet every day in the bathrooms there, and that's where they held their meetings every day.
Which probably accounts for why that bathroom is in just such an odd location. I mean, who knows? Maybe their entrance was going to be somewhere else, but it is a very, very odd location. The other Imagination thing that he went over is he talked about how Joe Rohde played one of the Dream Finders up in the Image Works area, and they showed some clips from Joe Rohde doing that, and the clip where the kids can act on the stage and be transported into this film of them being in an Old West scene. And I thought I got a good chuckle out of the fact that here it is, 1982, and this guy's got a gun and he's firing it at kids in the attraction. But it was kind of neat to see that.
I'll tell you what I took away from that clip too is that even when Disney possesses the masters, how badly some of those videotapes have degraded.
Oh yeah.
Because that was obviously shot on video,
right.
And they just, they're using the best copy they have available, and it had degraded quite a bit.
And Disney, if you're listening, we can help out with that. We got some neat filters, and we can bring some of that stuff back to life.
That was not an attempt at a shameless plug, I promise you.
So, but there were a number of other things that Tony and crew went through, and I think it was a really neat presentation. Like you said, Brian, it was at the right time where everybody's sitting there eating their sandwiches. It was a great light event for that time of the. And then we moved into the Dreamers and Doers segment, right? Where they brought up a number of different past and current Imagineers. Sullivan was up there. And I think what I took out of that, if I remember, is a lot about logs. Crafting logs.
They had a retired Imagineer, Patrick Brennan, who was there, and he told the story about the first project he ever got at Imagineering when he started was one of the guys assigned him to build a log, and so he builds, he molds this log and then calls the guy that gave him the instructions over to kind of review his work and see how he was doing. And so the guy then asks him a series of questions like, well, what's the log going to be used for? I don't know. Okay, well, are they putting an animatronic on it? I don't know. Well, if they're putting an animatronic, where are the service holes going for the hydraulics and for the anchor? And where's the control box going to be? And where have you allowed for those things? And he said the whole thing was an exercise in the kinds of things you need to ask in Imagineering when they give you an assignment so that you know what you're actually building and what it's going to be used for. So he used it as a teaching thing. But we found out, the money moment for the story was that the log resided in the universe of energy from 1982 up until the attraction closed a few weeks ago. And one of the dinosaurs actually sat upon it and thrilled guests. So we went by Patrick's log for 35 years.
That's right. And one thing that I took away from that whole panel, it was really neat listening to the different Imagineers not only compliment each other, but really demonstrate in their words of how well the teams worked and how, it was a fun job, but they were there to also teach the next generation and the people behind them. And you really could get a sense of how much joint ownership there was in the projects and how well they worked together and how their training to help one another was really, really strong. And I noticed that through a lot of the comments, and it really goes a long way to show how well Disney is organized in that fashion to help each other out and train the next.
And it was great because I got to hear Sully Sullivan tell the bird story again as to why there are a grove of trees in the middle of the Epcot parking lot, because they found some bird that was protected, and so that lives in dead trees. So they had to leave this grove of dead trees in the center of the Epcot parking lot and move construction over to another spot to what they were doing. And when he told this, he added the story this time that the whoever is a construction manager or whatever that was completely frustrated by this discovery that was made by one of the people on the staff who also happened to be a birder, that to give him a little bit of a rise, they got him a stuffed version of whatever that protected bird was and put it in his office at Imagineering, which I thought was very, very funny. Yeah, it was great to hear. There's some of those stories I had heard before, which I guess is a function of having gone to enough of these events. But it was that was a fun panel. It always is. They had 3 current Imagineers, 1 retired Imagineer, Sully, who's a Disney legend. And then I always forget his name. What is it? Rick Allen?
Rick Allen, yeah.
Rick Allen. And he told us a story about his dad, right, Hal?
That's right. So his dad was part of the group that would go around the world to different countries and kings and then also corporations to try to sign people onto EPCOT Center. So his dad got to travel the world in order to get sponsors for EPCOT, which is pretty groovy. And then his brother, his claim to fame, I believe his name is Bob Allen, he got to voice Figment for just like 30 seconds in this promotional video. But he did an absolutely fantastic job. I mean, he sounds exactly like Billy Barty. It was so cool.
You really can't tell the difference at all. If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known.
Right. And so just so you know, Rick Allen is he's in charge of Future World. That's his responsibility. So he told us the story that his mother still goes to the parks. And he said the one day he got a phone call from her, and she says, he answers the phone, "Hey, Mom, how you doing?" She says, "Well, I'm standing outside of Test Track, and there's trash all over the floor here." So he got yelled at by his mom for his portion of the park not being clean enough.
To me, my big takeaway from the whole panel is just how much passion everyone who worked on EPCOT and continues to work on EPCOT has for the park. And even the current Imagineers, it's like they all told stories about when they were younger and experienced it. And I think it is a really special place for them. So, despite, or maybe, I don't know what the right way to put this is. It's like, I think no matter what management puts to them as Epcot transforms and changes, I think they really are going to try very hard, to keep the soul of Epcot in there as much as they can.
Yeah, I agree. And it definitely, you could definitely see, even when they kicked that whole panel off, they made sure to show us photos of all of them at their very first time in Epcot, whether it was them building it or them there in silly looking socks and 1980s garb as a kid. I mean, it was really neat to see them add that bit in there, and they all genuinely really did appreciate the park, like you said, Hal. And you could definitely tell that they've got a good team assembled to help us into the future. So after that wrapped up, we went into an entertainment, a little bit about Mariachi Cobre and all the different entertainment that's been there over the years.
Yeah, so Mariachi Cobre, I was extremely fascinated by this. And Todd, actually, we have seen them before.
Oh.
Think about where else we've seen a mariachi band in some of our...
It's got to be at the Contemporary.
Yes, so... they actually started out in Disneyland in the early 1960s as teenagers. They were part of this like teen mariachi group that I guess was something that was new.
Was it like Menudo?
Yeah,
The Mariachi Nudo.
So they performed at Disneyland, and then they would do festivals there every so often. And then the entertainment director kept, let me find his name here, Randy Carrillo. They kept his number, and they would call him up at like odd intervals and say, "Oh, hey, why don't you come out and do this? Do a show for us or do a festival for us." And so when they opened up Walt Disney World, they called him and they had him. And they were very young still. They had him go to Walt Disney World and perform in the Contemporary. And also he shared a photo of inside Pecos Bills when they were performing in there with the Frito-Lay logo on one side of the stage and the Pepsi logo on the other side of the stage, which was really cool. And then they played there for a number of years and then stopped. And then once they did EPCOT, they called him up to have him do Mexico, and he has been there for 35 years as a full-time cast member ever since then, which is just incredible.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize that the history of them went that far back. So after they wrapped up, that was kind of the end. We did get a musical tribute, right, to a lot of the old EPCOT songs. They had a trio of singers come out, and
not just a trio.
Oh, it was a quartet.
We had
right?
3 cheeses. 4 singers.
I'm sorry. I missed one there. I apologize.
That's okay.
And they had them come out and did a number of different songs, including, I believe, Golden Dream was in there. We had New Horizons, Making Memories. I think it kicked off with Making Memories.
Yeah, Tomorrow's Child. Spark. And and actually, I want to just, as a musician guy, I think they did a phenomenal job, both this group and when the Voices of Liberty did their medley at the beginning. It's like these were not trivial arrangements of these songs. It's like they did a great job blending all of the old EPCOT songs together into these things. And, I don't know if they're ever going to perform this outside of this one performance. And I know it certainly took a lot of time to arrange, and it took a lot of time to rehearse and practice and get right, and they nailed it. So,
and it should be mentioned that it was introduced as a tribute to Marty Sklar, who we just lost recently, and this is the first one of these anniversary events, Destination D Orf anniversary, that Marty was not a part of. But Jason Grant and Tony Baxter told us that he had intended to be there. He had a plane ticket and his reservations booked. His death was quite unexpected a few months ago, so that was a really wonderful tribute to him, because they picked 3 songs from original EPCOT to do, and Marty was, of course, in kind of running Imagineering back then when they did all that. So it was a nice tribute.
Done very well. As the event ended, we did have the opportunity to purchase some EPCOT35 things at a pop-up store that was in the tent. But I don't think, did anybody buy anything? I was good.
I didn't buy any merchandise.
You didn't either. We spent enough on the weekend. Afterwards, we did a nice, we met up with a lot of our fans from the prior night, and some new fans and new people that were brought along by friends. And we did a walking tour of EPCOT. And that's actually one of the things that we will do with you on our donor list. Actually, is a personal tour of EPCOT by one of your hosts here. So when you're looking at the donor page, think about that. And that was a lot of fun. We did a lot of great stuff. But after our walking tour concluded over at the Land Pavilion, and thanks to everybody coming out for that. As we mentioned at the beginning of the program, the 4 of us. Just by happen chance or by luck, I don't know what it was, we did not do any early ticketing on this at all. We were able to obtain one or 4, I should say, of the 50 tickets available for the Progressive dinner. Now, guys, going into this, we had no idea how exclusive this was going to be. We were thinking maybe 100 tickets or so. And I remember going up...
Right. We knew from trying to originally do our event at the Norway Pavilion that the top out there was 100 people. So we figured out it must be 90 or 100 people.
Right.
Because it said meet at Norway.
Right. That's where the night was starting.
Right.
So we figured, okay, well, it can't be more than 100. You know.
So we arrive in Norway and we go upstairs, and as it turns out, I asked upon check-in how many people were attending, and they said 50. And we were I was taken aback by that. And there was also a couple messages sent to us in the previous a couple days leading up that you could not wear any open-toed shoes. So proper footwear was required for the final event of the evening, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So they lead us into the Norway Pavilion to start, where we are treated to champagne and a number of different appetizers, tenderloin tacos. They were good. They were really good.
Yeah.
Some shrimp, Horizon's orange shrimp in a risotto, and some pretzels from Germany. Everything had a theme back to an old EPCOT pavilion or even current EPCOT pavilion. And we sat down, and there was a toast with the champagne, and Bob Gurr repeated the story about Ford and GM. So we got to hear it.
Toast wasn't the toast by the vice president of EPCOT too, wasn't
she
it?
was there. Did that, and we were in their pavilion for a little while. We were sitting with Bob, and Tony Baxter was there, and everybody was milling about, and it was a really nice, intimate event. I mean, if you include the D23 folks, we're only talking about 60-some people total.
My favorite part of that first session was we're sitting there with Bob Gurr at the table, and Bob, at one point after we're there about 10, 15 minutes, says, well, I've spent a lot of time with you guys. I got to go mingle with the rest of these folks. And he just got up and moved on. And, and of course, he sat with us at the next place, and we had a really nice chat, further chat. But
exactly.
It was just, again, that whole idea that he knows he's there to interact with everybody in the room. And so he makes sure he takes the time to try to make sure everybody gets to him.
Exactly. And
I felt like this was the first moment of this evening too. I felt like I was doing something wrong. Like I'm like, we can just have all this. It's okay. And I can stand here with Tony Baxter and it's not a big deal. Like it was just, I'm like texting everybody I know that cared.
He'll actually talk to me if I say hello.
Yeah. Okay. I got Tony Baxter here and unlimited champagne. Like this is crazy.
Oh man. So we did, I think we spent about a half hour there or so, and they asked us to get up and we'd be moving on to the next location. So we marched over in a somewhat half-assembled line with Bob Gurr leading the way. You've got a great picture of that, JT, with Bob just holding the D23 sign above his head and just
it was great
forcing his way through the park.
I've told this story. It's so awesome. We're standing down there, and they had us like those handlers, like the Disney workers with the light up wands. They weren't there, and somebody goes, they go, just head to the GM building, and we go, we don't know where that is. I think you guys were still upstairs or on your way down. And so we all look and we go, well, I'm sure Bob Gurr knows where this is. And he kind of took it upon himself to lead us. So with one finger in the air, he's walking us through the World Showcase towards World of Motion. And, it was hilarious because you see these random people walking by this group and they're going, oh my God, that was Bob Gurr. Like, they just didn't know. And yet he's taking us to the GM building, which he just finished telling the story about, getting the sponsorship show. It was pretty cool.
And don't forget, you're walking with a lot of people from California, and even one of them, a couple of them motioned to me and said, I've never been to this ride before. I've never been Epcot. This is the first time I've seen Illumination. So a lot of them really didn't know where to go, but Bob just cut right through the crowd, and halfway through you've got Tony Baxter, and we're going through that congested area between Mexico and Odyssey, and you see people trying to pull over Baxter for photos, and it was quite a
it felt very exclusive.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna continue the hero worship of 86-year-old Bob Gurr here, because we had our event the night before. We were out that morning at the D23 event, but really we spent the afternoon sitting at a table. We did this walking tour of Epcot, which for Future World, which we were out 90 minutes on our feet trucking around Future World. But we got to this event, and I know like all four of us were like, whew, like, we felt like we did 3 rounds with Muhammad Ali. So we're out from this first one, and I am watching Bob Gurr truck through the crowded World Showcase. And I got to tell you, I tell everybody, it's like rush hour in Calcutta when you're trying to make your way right during Food and Wine. I mean, there's just throngs of people everywhere. I'm having trouble keeping up with the guy. And he's got 60 years on us. Like, it just, he just didn't seem to quit. He just trucked along.
No, he had that D23 marker plate there on the stick, and he's walking along, leading the whole tour.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't there for that. It's like somebody should have been like, Bob, we got people to do this. Just hang back and have some champagne.
So we arrived there at Test Track, and we all go up the elevator, and that's a really nice lounge. It's obviously all been redone, and they timed it with they're working to time it with sunset, which was a little overcast that night, so it was tough to see. But we sat down there. We had Bob and we had Jeffrey Epstein from D23 at our table, and Steve Agnini came over and talked to us. He loved our Mesa Verde University shirt, so it was really great to talk to everybody. And I think that's where we had the cheddar cheese soup from Canada and the field green salad from the land. Which
with a spaceship Earth crostini,
exactly.
which was the only thing of the night that I'm like, come on, it's just a little. It's like a little crouton.
It's an oval. It's not even.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with spaceship.
It looked maybe like the Siemens logo. It was oval. I'm stretching it here.
They did have drinks for us on a platter again when we walked in. Those blue.
Come on, what was that called?
There was a number.
590 something, wasn't it? A number.
It was something, and
I don't know what that signifies.
It was the length of Test Track.
There you go. All I can tell you is it for those of you Taco Bell fans out there, it tasted like the Mountain Dew Baja mix that they have.
So good.
And except it was like pure alcohol, and it went down so good. The walk from GM to the Living Seas Pavilion for me was a little tough because I had a couple of them. In fact, the guy gave us a roadie, remember?
Yeah, they did roadies at all of them. They said, I go, what should I do with this glass of beer I just started? They go ask the guy for a plastic cup. He'll dump it in there for you.
I walked from one to the other with the beer. It was great. It was great.
Yeah. Now, I want to add, though, that the lounge up there offered obviously a cool view of Spaceship Earth. We noticed it. Somebody brought up it didn't have the covering over the Test Track, extended queue there. So from the hurricane, so that was cool. Just it was structure. But then if you looked like you did that, Sears Tower, put your head against the glass look on the lounge, you could see the Test Track cars like shooting by every 15 seconds.
Yeah, you posted a video of that, JT, right?
Yeah, I did on Instagram. It was really cool. I used the magical slow-mo on my iPhone and just grabbed a couple of them. But it was cool. You just see these people in a full bank turn. Like, you're like, there goes another. There goes another. And same thing with the drinks. It was like, there goes another. There goes another.
So after we finished up there, they led us back downstairs, and we headed over to a now familiar lounge, which was the Living Seas Salon. And we walked in.
We did the Forrest Gump. We got to visit the Seas Salon again.
And it was like it was deja vu walking in there, and then some of the hosts and hostesses there were there for us the previous night. So I know Jill recognized. She goes, "Hey, you're back!" And one of the women with the lightsabers or the light wands, I said, "Oh, you're back from last night." She recognized me as well. So it was good to see them again.
Well, when we were at the GM lounge, the guy serving us our soup, if you remember, when I said, "Didn't you work our event last night at the Living Seas Lounge?" He said, "Yes, I did."
No, we walk in, it's pretty funny. It's because it's a lot of these people's first time into the Seas Lounge, and Dasa was like, "Oh, all right, we're back here." So we went and found our table. Everybody's up at the aquarium taking pictures and whatnot.
I could have given a tour of the place, like, "Hey guys, the bathroom's over here. Here's the piano. Great. You want a picture of the piano? Go ahead."
It was nice to be able to go in there, not from the stairs in the back, lugging boxes up 2 flights of stairs.
Oh my
gosh!
Thank you.
Thank you, Hal and JT.
That's right. Our unloading crew. We'll do it differently next time. We'll ask them for an extra hour.
At the GM lounge, we had Jeffrey Epstein from D23 with us at our table. Yep. So sitting with us at our table was one of the 2 Walt Disney World ambassadors, Ken Fazy. Actually, at the attraction walkthrough later that night, we had the other Walt Disney World ambassador with us, Brandon Peters.
Yeah, Brandon was cool. He was nice in Spaceship Earth.
Yeah.
Yes. Ken was all pumped. Ken was actually, I felt I was the elder statesman for once, so I knew how you guys feel dealing with me, because Ken was like, hey, have you guys talked about the Animal Kingdom this? And I was like, yes.
We had a good
Ken
chat
coming
about
in
the
hot.
Hatbox Ghost.
Yeah.
Yes,
Brian
we
blew his
did.
mind by showing him actual, film
He
of
goes,
the Hatbox Ghost.
Yeah, he goes, I've never seen a video of it. And Brian goes, watch this.
Yeah, of the original Hatbox Ghost, not the one that's been there for the last few years.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think he was enthralled with the opening of the Seas Pavilion with John Ritter. Was how he broke the conversation open, which was fun.
Yeah, he told us he had a videotape, and one side of it, or like the first half, was the Living Seas opening special. I'm trying to remember what the second half was now, because they said.
I thought the second half was either the 15th anniversary special or the Disney MGM Studios opening special. I don't remember which one he told us, but I think it was the 15th anniversary, because they would have been within 6 months or a year of each other.
Yeah, I felt like we were rehashing our episode of opening specials, because he talked about, who was the guy on the acoustic guitar?
Glenn
Campbell, yeah.
Glenn Campbell came
And he was joking.
into the Seas Salon. Glenn Campbell.
Walking through the forest, and all of a sudden, there's a monorail.
But actually, let me just say how nice it was to talk to someone from Disney who was actually a fan of Disney, because that seems to be such the rarity these days.
It really was. Like, you gotta the story he told at the morning session was about how, as a kid, he had, with paper towel rolls and tinfoil, constructed his own Spaceship Earth model because he was so taken by it. And what a great time to sit with him and chat over dinner. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Now, for those of you who didn't get in, I tried not to talk this up on Twitter because I don't want to be like, what a jerk. Nobody got tickets to this thing. And now we're going to describe in detail for you the dinner that we had.
So I'm reading from, I took a picture of the placard that was sitting on the table at each of our settings. And it says, the Seas inspired. It was a Maine lobster tail paired with grass-fed beef tenderloin filet, black truffle risotto, broccoli spears, and a roasted plum tomato. So they brought those all out to
now,
everybody.
for those of you who didn't make it, the steak was a little tough. The lobster was undercooked. You didn't miss it.
It was really, there wasn't enough truffle, if you ask me. You know?
Honestly, if they had just served me the dessert.
Yeah.
Because I am a dessert man.
What was it? School bread from Norway. We had more Horizons orange tarts.
Orange tarts. There was the
orange tarts. There was the
macaroons from
the macarons, from France that were Horizons themed. I forget what they were. French pavilion themed.
French pavilion themed. Yeah.
And then the
cannolis, the original Alfredo's cannolis, and the last thing I remember was a trifle, like a peach trifle at the end, which I think was off of a. Playing off the UK pavilion, I think.
No, there was a Peach Boys. That was the one I refused to eat because it was Food Rock themed.
Food Rock. Yeah, everything had a little tag on it. The desserts were originally going to be served over at the UK pavilion, so they gave us a little more time here at the Seas to eat dessert, and then they said they would usher us over to the UK pavilion. To watch Illuminations.
Man, and it's a good thing they didn't give us dessert there, because that would have been.
Oh my gosh, it would have been so. I'll tell you what, though, if they would have ended it at the Seas Salon, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I would have been satisfied. Like that was 3 things with the food. It would have been pretty darn good. Just not worth what we paid, but it would have been super awesome.
So it was nice for them to bring us all the way over and see Illuminations. I'm not gonna go into it here. I have my pros and cons with Illuminations, but Let's start and explain to folks where that is. If you're looking at the UK pavilion, it's down around into the garden area, and you're very, very low on the water, looking directly out to the center of World Showcase Lagoon. So we had an excellent
water level.
Right, water level.
You can touch the water.
They built these little overlooks and outcroppings from in front of the restaurants of a lot of the pavilions, or the walkways of a lot of the pavilions. In this case, it's outside of the Rose and Crown, outside the windows of the Rose and Crown. And they rent them. So you can rent them, and D23 had this one booked for an Illuminations dessert party. And it was about as close as they can get you to the actual launch pad. And
maybe too close.
So the wind is not blowing in our favor that evening, and the illumination starts, and the wind is blowing in our face. And after the first large set of fireworks going off, you can feel the smoke and a little bit of ash come towards you. And
which is always the case. I mean, if
Yeah.
you do illuminations, that's always the case with illuminations. You
Right.
want to try to be upwind from it.
Exactly. So, they can't control where we are in the wind that night, so it's acceptable. So we watch the entire illuminations, and then they proceed to talk about a special fireworks display to celebrate EPCOT 35. And things start off very, very well, and the fireworks are going off, and it's about a 3.5 minute production, and the fireworks start building up bigger and bigger, and we get to the finale. Guys, I mean, we saw things shooting horizontal across the water. We saw things spinning in the sky, and all of a sudden there is this it's like mortars of stuff going off from these 2 special barges that they had dragged out there. I think JT, you said it's like being in a war zone. I mean, it was just pop after
It's
pop
nuclear
after pop.
fallout, just smoke and just ash and chunks of cardboard.
You feel stuff. I looked down afterwards, and there was curved pieces of the shell that had fallen down all around us. Later on, we're in light, and we find out that we all have these stains on our arms from the firework dye or something. My hair had ash in it. It was.
And mind you, none of these are complaints.
No, it was
No,
awesome. It was thoroughly awesome.
It was just so and then like House said, good thing they didn't do the desserts there because we're supposed to eat through that.
He's standing
Our desserts would have been covered in smoke and soot and fire.
So here we are. We all smell like sulfur, and they had already told us what the final thing would be, which we're going to get to here in a second. So we walk back to Spaceship Earth, and we go into the exit area. And we break up into groups of 14, and we're told that we are cast members for the evening. And the reason being is that we're honorary cast members, so to speak, because we were a very small group to be able to go up and walk all of Spaceship Earth from where you board and with the work lights on, walk all the way up the spiral and come down through the center. Now, before we get to a description, because we learned so much on it, our group's first stop was actually to go outside and ride the maintenance elevator from the outside, which, if those of you are not familiar where the maintenance elevator is, it's in that stainless steel mirrored area right in front of the Spaceship Earth entrance where the queue begins. And we went up there and got to see the maintenance area, and we learned a little bit about the plumbing, right, guys?
Yes, we did.
Well, it's crazy because that's the spot everybody takes their selfie at, it seems like, and they it's this big door opens up, and it's like anything backstage. You don't expect it to be so just utility, but it's just a big utility elevator with that, not even like a door, just a gate that comes down in front of you.
It's a true freight elevator. There's nothing fancy about it, and they can move some pretty large stuff up through there.
Now, when we rode that up, was that the only place that elevator went, or did it go more places?
I believe it went to a couple other, 1 or 2 other floors, because they said that Reedy Creek can utilize that to evacuate people.
So we went to what, like floor 4 or something? I remember.
So 4 has a control panel, some evacuation information. Sitting next to me were racks of blueprints on their edge, indicate for repairs and whatnot. But off to the side, we look over, and there is a toilet, and there is an actual bathroom.
Well, there's a bathroom.
With a toilet.
It's not just a toilet.
The toilet is not just sitting out.
But there's a bathroom with a full toilet, full sink, and there's an eye wash station, among other things.
So our guide tells us that is the only bathroom in Spaceship Earth, and then proceeds to tell us that where we are is on the other side of the caveman scene, right? With the woolly.
Yes, behind the screen.
And that they are not permitted to use that bathroom because when they do, you can sometimes hear the flush as you go through the caveman scene.
Imagine that sound. So for emergency use only.
Yeah, but what the other important water detail from up there is she pointed it out and said that is the coldest water fountain on property, and we tried it. I mean, at that point, it began a procession of people trying the water fountain.
That's right.
And it is, in fact, where you can get the coldest drink in all of Epcot.
It was deliciously refreshing at that point at the end of the
Yes.
day. So we descend in the elevator, and the next group is going to come up, and it turns out we were the first group to then go inside of Spaceship Earth and proceed to do a security safety lockout procedure in order to make sure that everything was safe and that the ride wouldn't turn on while we were in there. So we begin to walk up the stairs, and the first bit of information I thought was neat was she talked about that television screen that you see when you go in there. You always think you're on it, and you're wondering where you are. You're trying to wave at that screen, and it turns out that's the camera is actually up in the ancient Egyptian area, which I thought, when the Phoenicians actually, which I thought was interesting. But as we crest to the top where the caveman scene begins, we found two things. First, you asked a very poignant question about some historical aspect of right there where that giant black scrim was.
So one of my long-standing questions from probably the first time I saw Spaceship Earth to up until last week was... why isn't there a full scene of the mastodon and the cavemen there? Because I think we talked about this on our Spaceship Earth episode. It's like when the park first opened up and you would go on that ride, you saw slides projected of the model for that very scene. And it always seemed odd to me. It's like, well, they obviously built a model for it, so it seems like they were going to put it in there. And for some reason they didn't. And I asked, is there enough room behind that screen for a full scene with a mastodon attack? And she told us yes, that there was. And she said that it was determined that the figure would be too heavy for that area. And so they scrapped the idea and ended up going with a projection instead. And now today it's a digital projection with a 3D modeled mastodon and cavemen. It's a lot more fancy, but I don't know if I believe that is true, that's why it was scrapped, but it feels good to know that in fact there was something planned for there and there's enough space for it, and who knows, maybe someday it'll show up.
It's also the only scene they could get away with it because they haven't gotten into the animatronics yet.
Right.
So like you can fool it there, but once you get into the next scene, you're married to the animatronics.
And we found out there's another place too where it seems like perhaps some costs were cut somewhere along the line, and we'll get to that a little bit towards the end.
Yeah.
But
so my one theory too is that, remember, in the Spaceship Earth episode, we talked about how it's built as a table with half of it hanging and half of it, the bottom geodesic sphere being hung and the top being resting on that table. I'm wondering, are we below the table at that point where it's hanging, and is that a cause of the weight concern?
That is a very valid question, because obviously there are. I know they told us the figure like how many tons the whole thing weighs. I mean,
it's insane.
It's holding up an awful lot. It's hard for me to believe that another I don't know how much an animatronic mastodon weighs. A couple of thousand. I don't see how a couple of 1,000 pounds is suddenly going to make Spaceship Earth come rolling off of its base and go into the World Showcase Lagoon. But it could be.
Yep,
it could happen.
So also in that scene, if you look up very carefully to your left as the car is just turning, if you have really good eyes and they're adjusted at that point, you'll see the beam for the crane that is there to come over and lift up the cars. And what we did learn was that to remove one car from the track takes 6 hours, and the actual track system cannot go in reverse. So if it's not in the absolute exact spot for the crane to lift that off, they have to then send the track all the way around, which takes 13 minutes. And when you're riding it, that is full speed. They can't go any faster. We also saw two other interesting things about the car. So the one was, we did ask if the spacer cars, and that's exactly what some of them are there for, contain the original audio equipment, and she did confirm that it did contain the original audio equipment. And we also saw a spacer car that has a canvas covering with zippers on it. and that has small seats that a maintenance worker can sit on and ride, and also contains a number of different tools and things that they need to do different maintenance on the ride, which I thought was neat. And I had never seen that car before in all the times that I had been on the attraction, so it was really neat.
Yeah, we did see every car.
Yes, we did. We walked the whole thing. The other interesting thing is that it's registered in the state of Florida as a roller coaster because it has the pressurized roller coaster track, if you will, even though it goes very, very slow. To Disney, it's an omnimover, but to the Florida state, it is officially a roller coaster. So we moved into the Phoenicians, and I as we're walking through some of the Cro-Magnon scenes and everything, I heard one woman go, "They're a lot creepier when they're not moving," which was kind of true.
That was me.
That was you. Okay, yeah, in your female voice.
Actually, JT found something neat in the Egyptian scene. So like where the river is, he's like, "Hey, how come they put camouflage down on this one thing? But in the dark, it actually looks like a moving river."
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. And it was really neat to see this stuff with the work lights on because, well, first of all, you realize how much dirt and crap there is on some of the scenes, and the black tarps are, everything is painted so black. So it's really interesting how much junk there is that accumulates.
And I got to see in the Egyptian scene, it's like where that audio animatronic figure is missing that used to be up on the column, like making the hole is still there, where he used to have the chisel piece and like moving up and down. So it's totally just God.
And
which also led to speculation from Howe about where that figure may have ended up.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to. It's either him or I'm wondering if it was one of the missing Islamic scholars is now in a different position. So.
And we learned was that James Buchanan is the additional standing, not pharaoh, but the helper of the pharaoh, I believe, is James Buchanan with a little eye makeup on. I believe that's the president that was.
Was it Taft? No.
Or maybe it was Taft. I don't recall.
It's a president.
Yeah, it's a president. So the standing assistant to the pharaoh is actually a president, reimagined, if you will, with eyeliner and such. So we continue to walk up, and also at this point, when you're walking through Spaceship Earth and with the lights on, it's very easy to see where you're going. And there are no steps at this point. It is just a carpeted path with the sensors in it. So if anybody gets off the ride, it automatically shuts it down, which they tell happens about, what'd you say, once a day? It's on average how often it happens. And they send somebody up from the center, and they send somebody up from the bottom, and they meet in the middle and take the
flush them out,
the perpetrator out. But it is carpeted, so it's very nice, easy footing to walk around. So we came up to the Phoenician merchants, which is kind of neat when you see the boats not rocking, which was neat. And then we came up to the Greek city area where we're talking about what is it? The students there are listening to the professor, if you will.
Oh, she did tell us one interesting thing about the Phoenician merchants. So the main merchant with the beard is voiced by Joe Rohde.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
which I thought was
exactly. So in the scene that used to be the Greek theater, that is now the professor and the students. A couple interesting anecdotes there is that she first told us why it smells like crayons, and that's some of the fluid that is used inside of the audio animatronics. So you might smell a little crayon smell if they're leaking. The other interesting thing is that in that scene, the student on the far or closest to the ride vehicles has a cape on, and apparently this is what actually caused the ban of selfie sticks at Walt Disney World. Was due to a group of cheerleaders, I believe she said, had the selfie stick out.
That's what she said, yeah.
Yeah, yes. Caught on the cape and ripped the whole thing off, and no more selfie stick after that.
In that animatronic, if you look closely down at the ground, it is white. You could see the fluid, which they said is reddish orange. You could see some staining of that cloak or whatever dress down there on the ground, because at one point it leaked, and I guess it's clean enough. I've never noticed it till the lights were on. So.
And he has no toes. They're flat feet. The toes are actually painted, which I thought was neat to give the impression of the depth. So then we come to the Rome scene. Boy, did we learn something interesting here, huh?
This is the moment everybody's been waiting for.
That's right.
groundbreaking breaking news here.
So first of all, there was an interesting anecdote to add to this, is that at the end of this day was the very last day of Seaman sponsorship, and they have been bringing through new potential sponsors that walk the ride and see what's there and see what's not there or what's been left over. We're going to talk a little bit about the leftovers in a bit. So the question came up, what happened to the Roman chariot that used to come out? And she turned us around and she says, up there, it's covered with a piece of tape. So the Roman chariot guy is actually still there. The animation is ready to go. She couldn't confirm whether or not the projector is actually running, but the projector hole is just covered with a piece of tape, which I'm hoping that somebody uncovers that, or the next one to come through wants to have that back.
Knowing what we know of Disney attractions, the projection is probably still running back there.
Yep.
Unbroken for the last 10 years.
She did say
all they need to do is rip it off.
She
That's
said
right.
why they turned it off.
Yeah, go ahead.
They
Jason.
said it was creeping out kids.
Which I mean, okay, it is white, it is kind of ghosty looking, but it really wasn't. I don't know.
Even I remember that. That what didn't scare me as a kid. It just drove by. I mean,
Yep.
These kids need to toughen up.
gosh.
They're ruining our attractions.
So as we get into the fall of Rome, if next time you're going through the attraction, you're obviously the car turns to the left a little bit and you see the burning embers, which is completely black when the lights are off. You can't really make out any definition of anything. Turn to your right and you'll see a hole in the wall, and that's where the Smelitzer is, which pumps that smell into the scene.
Do you remember where she said it was from?
I remember it's an oil.
Was this the one she said was from Horizons?
Yeah, that's
the
the one.
Like, what's that?
Right.
Big hole
Oh, that's
from?
right.
And she goes, that's the Smelitzer, and she goes, that's the one from Horizons.
Right, because their other one broke and they had to replace it or something. So Horizons is still living in Spaceship Earth. There's some giant vents on the ceiling that you really probably can't see, but if you look up, you might be able to see these two big square vents that actually suck the smell and the oil up, and toss it outside and get rid of it, so that way they don't have the smoke. But I don't know. I can always smell it underneath Spaceship Earth. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, we could smell it in the elevator shaft too.
As
soon as we got in the elevator, it's like, oh, someone's like room in here.
How that was you with the firework embers still burning on you.
My hair was on fire.
Okay, so we also learned that Michelangelo is ambidextrous, apparently, with painting. That they said he could paint with his left and his right arm. So
But they have him painting with the arm that they have because he's painting a nude statue, and the moving hand covers the private areas of the person he's painting.
Exactly, which I think was Adam, right? So we walk around the corner there and we get to the post Civil War era, and where the printing press is and the giant steam press. And we actually learned that steam press, well, they know it's broken and they want to get it working again. And if you look up on the ceiling, you can see that the steam has really taken its toll on some of the ceiling. But she said when it runs correctly, it won't have that problem. But it is an actual steam press machine from the 1800s, and it's one of only two true antiques that are in the ride. We'll talk about the other one in a little bit, which was...
So, that was weird because we were told that it was reproduced based on drawings, but it wasn't like an actual antique.
So, we're going to have to try and get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, we got to...
We're only reporting what we have here, folks.
Yeah,
so.
basically she said it's not working because they can't get parts for it. That's the reason.
Right. And they would have to make a part for it. And we get to our little friend, the newsboy.
Extra.
So, yeah, JT, you want to tell him why they moved him?
Well, yeah, he was always facing the ride vehicle, right? Okay.
Yep.
Well, so we said, what's going on? Where is he? Faceless? Has he been disfigured? What's the reason? She said, they moved him because everybody was trying to grab his papers. That was the reason. So they moved him back there in the corner, which I felt like was an extreme jump. I mean, they could have moved him 3 feet back and nobody could get a paper.
The other thing she said, that was the main reason, but the secondary reason from a design standpoint as to why they put him where they put him, she told us, was because they didn't want him to be the focal point of everyone's attention in the scene. And with him facing the car yelling at you, everybody tended to stare at the boy and not the giant working steam press or anything else going on around them.
So the $1 million question is his face is still there. He has a scratch on it, she said, but his face is still there. He's a whole real boy back there selling papers to the alley.
And I think she implied that alley area had been repainted or something. I don't know how. I don't recall that, but she said they kind of tried to expand out the way that it felt too. So in the telegraph scene that's on your right hand side, we know that the message being relayed is about Promontory Point. Everything, the golden spike being laid. And she said everything in there is period accurate except for one thing. And she lifts open a basket on the right hand side and reaches down and pulls out a telephone that is in there to call back downstairs if they need to, if their walkie-talkies aren't working or anything like that.
Or into that bathroom on the 4th floor.
That's
and say,
right.
Don't flush it.
Doesn't smell like Rome burning down here.
That's right. And also too, I forget if it was that scene. I think also down in the scholars scene too, that the back wall can be taken out in order to help expedite any type of evacuation. That needs to be done. It was really neat to see that. So that was cool. So we move up into a little more of the current, I shouldn't say current, but we move up into the telephone era. And now we had reported on our episode that the telephone switchboard was actually original. And she said that they got it from AT&T, but it was actually a reproduction, which was interesting.
Did she say AT&T? I feel like she said another company, like IBM or...
Oh, maybe it was IBM.
She said somebody that wasn't...
She said IBM
accidentally.
Company.
Okay.
And she did also note that the microphone in the news or the radio booth originally said WDE. They blacked out the E to look like an I. That's why the I looks off center.
WDP.
Was it WDP?
Productions, right.
And then, yeah.
Yep. And then they changed it to WDI. Yeah.
So the I is off center because it was actually the base of
Got it.
Yep. They never repainted it or anything. So just a little
ticket booth lady is from the Magic Kingdom.
Right.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
I know you don't believe it.
How called her out?
So her claim was that they swapped 2 of the audio animatronic. Well, they weren't even really on it. They were props. Two prop characters that were up in the top that the guys that were fixing the satellite, that they went to Space Mountain, and then in return, they got the ticket booth lady from the Main Street Cinema to put inside of the booth there. But I don't believe that because, for one, that ticket booth lady was actually in the Main Street Cinema ticket booth for years afterwards, unless it was a different one for some reason. I think her name was Suzanne, so unless the swap happened somewhere before. Well, she used to have a name tag, JT, and it said Suzanne, so... but then I actually saw a picture when they removed the whole ticket booth out of the cinema, which is perhaps why there's this thought. It's like I have seen a picture of it like in a warehouse, and the lady is still inside of the ticket booth. So I'm saying I'm going to call misinformation on that one.
Okay, fair enough. And she did also mention that the radio announcer is half. He doesn't have legs, which would make sense. Yeah, complete sense. So as we come up to one of Brian's favorite scenes, actually, right? The television broadcast of Apollo 11 in the 1969 home. We started to ask some questions about who is authorized to move the records. So, Brian, I know you like that. You've talked about before. You can explain.
The answer is they are. The engineering or the leads that do the walkthroughs at the end of the night are allowed to... It's one of the few things in the ride they're allowed to touch. So I know we touched on our episode about Spaceship Earth, about them rotating, and that is why occasionally one of the folks will go in there while they're doing their walkthrough and shift which record is up front, provided that they're all historically accurate with the time period. And of course, I pointed out on our episode that the one album they've had there, the Beatles' Greatest Hits, didn't come out until 1982, so it couldn't be in the 1969 moon landing scene that's on television. But we did find out the TV there is the other operating antique in the ride, and they got it from eBay.
That's right.
When the last one that they had in there broke.
I'll tell you what, there's a Twitter handle ready to pop. The updated records showing on the outside. That's somebody updating that. Because what was in there, do you remember? Pinocchio was there, yep.
Pinocchio, yeah. I asked her too. I said, "Do you have a selection to choose from?" She says, "Yeah, we got a stack that we can choose from." She also mentioned that the National Geographic, she has gone up there and inspected them, and they're not all historically accurate, but obviously you wouldn't be able to tell from the distance. So there are 1980s in there if you could get up close enough to read the spines.
Yeah, and across the way is the rehab scene from 2007, which is the scientist and the computer data scene. And she told us that all of the magnetic tape holders, all the reel covers that are along the wall, have different dates of significance and things written on them that are homages to the parks or to people from the parks.
Little Easter eggs.
And in that scene there, too, there's the two other items that they can touch. There's two open books, one down on the far right. That book there is for anybody who's being trained to sign. And then the official ride leads sign the book that's right next to the computer woman that's on the desk right there. That's the lead book. All right, so as we go in here, we pass the... it's not a Pinto. What was the car that's on the left?
She said it was a Chevelle. It's actually a Vega. It's a Chevy Vega, made in Ohio, by the way.
Oh, there we go. And she mentioned they took it all apart. She believes the only thing in it that's not, or anything that's not in it, is the transmission. I don't know why you plugged the engine.
It makes
there,
no sense.
Oh, no, it makes no sense
one
at all.
One more fact about that car: the project lead on that was John DeLorean. So.
Yeah. Oh, look at that! Look at that! So, we finish that up, and we see what everybody tries to think is the likeness of Steve Jobs, but she did confirm with us that it's the likeness of Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Bill Gates. I don't care who it's supposed to be. He's creepy. He needs to move. So we walk through what's left of the speed tunnel, and we get up to the top. Now, two things up here, guys. We're gonna talk about. We've talked about before how people said that it's supposed to, if you look carefully, you can still see the cutouts that make it look like the moon and all that. After seeing it with the work lights on, and after knowing that the track was going to be laid and you were going to go up and make another third maybe turn, a third way around before descending, I tend to believe that those cutouts are just there to block all the work view and block all the other storage that they have up there. I think that show scene was I don't think anything up there is remainder because they never laid the track for the final scene. So if you're interested, folks, you can certainly see when you're standing there with the work lights on that the track makes an abrupt turn to the right to go back down to earth, if you will. But further down, you can see the continual ramp up. And she pointed out these bricks or these moorings, which is where the actual track was going to continue. So the ride is a bit shorter than it should have been. But I'm curious to know what your comments are on what you saw up there.
A lot of equipment. Definitely, like when you go roll by and you see that the moon, the infamous moon walls and props. There is all kinds of junk there. Which I was kind of
so much maintenance. Racks, paint cans,
light
scissor
bulbs,
lifts. I mean,
exit
anything
signs.
You can think of is all there.
Exit
just
signs
over the wall. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I we don't know the true history of what went on up there in terms of ending the final scene, but I don't know. It doesn't. Those walls curve around to the exit. I don't believe that they were ever there to simulate the moon surface.
She did say sometimes the Earth is backwards with the projection, and she said if it is, let them know because it sometimes gets flipped.
Yeah.
And then, there was one more thing. Oh, she did talk about the when we hit on the Mickey up on top of Spaceship Earth. She did mention the scaffolding is blocked off. Nobody can go to it, and basically, like, it doesn't ever happen.
Yeah, no one's going up there, and they did, in fact, have to walk up to the very top. They had to walk about 20 feet from where that scissor lift goes. It was not a hatch, according to that.
Well, the hatch is there. The hatch is just on the incline and not actually at the tippy top.
Exactly. Yep. So we started to descend and go down through the center, and this is, I think, it really got interesting as we started to take the first spiral down.
We should mention at this point, the path, which at this point had all been a ramp, basically, now becomes just steps. We are walking down flights and flights of stairs.
Right. And there's a landing every 10 steps, if you will, a small landing to make it a little easier.
to make you break your neck on the way down.
That's right. And we go through the first scene, which has all those hanging lights. I don't know about you guys. I was impressed at how long those lights were. I always thought it was a trick of mirrors.
I did too.
But it is. Those are impressively long.
Are they like 8-10 feet? Some of them.
I think longer than that. 20 feet.
And they're like an LED. Literally, like there's no like mirror. I mean, they're literally just big plastic sticks hanging down with an LED every foot.
Yeah, perfectly aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And there we saw, blacked out, the space station.
The space station.
It's still there. We can confirm we saw it with our own eyes. Looks like somebody took a couple cans of Krylon, go away black.
But I'll tell you, even with the lights on, it's hard to make out how blacked out they have it.
Yeah.
You know, it just blends in with everything else.
Yeah, I think it's very, very, very difficult to see. So as we descended, she started to tell us about things that were there before. Obviously, the fiber optics and Tomorrow's Child, and all the items that were added during, what was it, the 2007 refurb? Yeah, those are all there. There's a part of a scrim that has fallen down, and we were able to peek in there and take a look. You can still see some of the not the characters, but the figures that were in those scenes. You can make out the city. You can make out a lot of the different things. So potentially, if a new sponsor comes in there, they're going to take a good look at the ride and see what's been turned off and what's not being used, and make decisions how to use that space and how to change the ride to fit their needs and their sponsorship. So that stuff is still there. Maybe we'll see them again. Maybe we'll see something new. And the last little bit I thought was interesting. She said a lot of the audio animatronics that were in the ride that aren't there anymore or haven't been repurposed. What they say, they were behind a wall there, right? There was a piece of plywood separating them. She couldn't take us up there, but she assured us that some of them were still resting
show scenes, and there was a cityscape background that was easy to look at.
So we finished the walking tour down at the end and right in the exit, and we turned in our safety key and walked down, and the D23 team was there and presented us with a nice canvas print of Spaceship Earth under construction, being able to see right through it and see the spiral we had just walked during sunset. So it was a really nice little gift. And that's the point when we went to the bathrooms and found out all the fireworks stains on our arms. But anything else to add, guys? I mean, once in a lifetime experience to go up there, right? I mean, it just I don't know. It was mind-boggling.
I mean, as if the whole dinner thing and just going to all the corporate lounges wasn't enough, which I was going to be perfectly fine with. I'm like, oh, good, I get to go into, like, that was definitely the icing on the cake. That is something I will never forget.
Yeah.
None of us speculated that we'd actually get to go into that ride.
Right.
I think we talked about American Adventure. We talked about maybe being brought into the Universe of Energy to see
what was
the
left.
dinosaur scene if it hadn't been deconstructed yet or something. But getting to walk that ride path was... You know, it's just, and having done it, don't ever think this is an experience they're going to offer to anybody, because it was treacherous at points.
Yeah. I did ask one of the D23 folks, I said, how many strings do you have to pull? And he said, quite a few. We were surprised we got it. He says, we ask for a lot of different things, and sometimes it doesn't happen, and sometimes the stars align. And he says, this time it happened to align, and we were able to do it. So, you know, and if I was thinking, guys, too, if there's any attraction that I would want to walk in all of Walt Disney World and see. I still want to swim through Pirates. I mean, that's always on the bucket list. But
Lazy River through Pirates.
Yeah, Lazy River through Pirates. Exactly. Just give me a Typhoon Lagoon tube and let me float. But this would be the one I would pick. So, you know, super, super big thank you to D23 and all the folks there that made it happen. And thank you very much to our tour guide, Allie. She was awesome. So big nod to her for taking us through.
And we hope that you've enjoyed our description and you felt like you were there.
Yeah. So if you have any other questions.
And we weren't allowed to take pictures, by the way.
That's right.
So that's why you don't see any close-ups of the animatronics or anything.
Yeah.
No pictures, no video, nothing.
Not only were we escorted by Allie, but we had somebody behind us as well. Her name escapes me at the moment, but
she was a trainee.
She had just been dubbed or, you know, knighted or whatever.
And I'm not sure she could talk because I don't remember hearing her utter a syllable the whole
night. That's true, other than waving hello.
I do remember Wayne, our key guy, he held our IDs.
That's
that
right.
Wayne?
Yeah.
Yes,
Wayne
that
was
was
awesome.
Wayne.
Held all of our safety keys.
He was the
and
key
everything.
master.
Yep. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this virtual walkthrough of Spaceship Earth, and we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Taking a look back at what went on over the weekend. If you were able to join us, thank you very, very much for your continued support. We really enjoyed having you there, and as always, thanks to our listeners for listening in. So again, if you're interested in helping support Retro WDW, obviously, as always, you can support us by purchasing some of our merchandise and custom tees at retro-wdw.com/support us. And also, as we mentioned in this episode, we have the additional donor fundraiser event going on. So if you head to retro-wdw.com and in the upper right, click on Donor Box, and you can donate a variety of different amounts, and you'll receive a thank you gift for donating to help keep us on the air and keep these films coming, and also be able to put on bigger and bigger events for you. I know we've already got an idea for the next one. We're not going to give any hints, but we're already thinking about it, and the gears are in motion. So we can't wait to bring that to you. So with that said, anything else, guys, before we wrap it up? This is kind of a long in-between episode, but we certainly had so much to say, we wanted to bring it to all of our listeners.
Big thanks to everybody that showed up. Big thanks to the listeners. It was nice to meet everybody. It was super awesome. Good weekend.
Yep, absolutely.
We'll see you in a few weeks with another full episode.
Yeah, we figure out what we're doing. We're still decompressing. So with that, as always, appreciate your listening. Give us a shout out on iTunes or Google Play or whatever review system you use. That'd be great. If you need to reach us, please tweet at us. Send any emails or questions and comments to podcast@retro-wdw.com. And with that, we'll see you in a few weeks. And Brian, take us out.
Follow Todd McCartney and Retro WDW on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Retro WDW. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise, visit us on the web at retro-wdw.com. On Twitter, follow our web designer Jason Bartel of Deepwater Studios at JasonDWS, our announcer Andre Gardner at Andre Gardner, and follow our hosts Hal Bowers on Twitter and Instagram at GoAwayGreen, and on the web at kingdomofmemories.com. For JT Kujar on Twitter at LS1JT, on YouTube at Rubber City Motoring, and on the web at rubbercitymotoring.com. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Brian P. Miles.